Hey everyone, welcome back to today's training for the Love Breakthrough virtual retreat. Now, my beautiful friend and our special expert today needs no introduction. She's been a highly requested and popular feature in every single of our 5 seasons. And I'm so grateful to be able to call her a friend. And
thank you so much for having me, and so happy to be here with this juicy subject.
we met, it would be more than 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, actually. I interviewed you as Australia's leading dating and relationship coach. And we've been friends really ever since then. And I guess one of the things that I really want to stress for everyone today with this really juicy topic we're about to dive in is just the depth of experience that all the women have, especially Camille. So where would we like to start? Because this conversation is really about all the women that are in their 40s and 50s and beyond. And your specialty is really helping them thrive through midlife as a midlife reinvention mentor.
Yes, and as you mentioned, my focus was very much about dating, relationship coaching over the last probably about 12 years now. And I felt like I needed to reinvent myself a little bit in my practice as a coach, as well as have had lots of personal changes as well. I've just gone through a whole reawakening, especially since I've turned 50. And I'm so excited to share this new chapter and this new content with the women listening. The reinvention theme is very dear to my heart, especially for women in midlife, which is us, right?
I'm not sure if I really am embracing it and embodying that just yet. But the
It's me
reality
right
is,
now. You're not quite vibing with the wording, maybe.
well, but the reality is, yes, there are inevitable changes. This is like the elephant in the room. So I want to address this first before we get onto your amazing strategies and talk about your amazing midlife awakening, because you are totally embodying this and walking the talk. But what are we specifically talking about when we're talking about the things that are unique to midlife and how they can affect us, perhaps losing a little bit of our sense of who we are and our being grounded in our own power?
The main things I see with women in midlife is they lose confidence, they lose sexual confidence, they start to feel like they're more invisible. Men aren't looking at them as much. We've talked about that in the past, that they feel they've lost their superpower a little bit if they have had it, and if they've never felt like it, they would feel it even more of a lack of it. They also, women in midlife go through hormonal changes, so there can be a bit of weight being, it's harder to lose the weight. Like it's a fact. Unfortunately, definitely harder to lose weight over 45, especially. Then there's also the sex drive. It can really drop quite a lot, or we can even get disconnected from our sexuality altogether because we can maybe be a bit numb. The women who've had children, maybe they've had a lot of focus just being mothers. Maybe, the women who have gone through divorces, they may have also lost the confidence again because there's been a lot of heartaches. I guess that the big picture is we have a lot more things have been added to our buckets. Death of parents, we've both gone through that. Grief, the whole thing so putting all of that together, that's a lot to deal with, and it's a lot then to come through with confidence and exuberance, and it's so many women stay then, or they go back a little bit within their own self and feeling disconnected.
One of the things I know a lot of women fear, and especially the women that are single that are listening to us today, Camille, is that it's so much, and we hear this, it's almost like programmed and infused by people at large, that it's so much more difficult finding a romantic partner and meeting people, and the availability of men and the men that are willing to commit when they might perhaps want to have something more casual with younger women. And there's all of this programming that it's so much harder. Now, I have so much evidence of beautiful relationships that women I work with have found and are thriving in midlife. But what would you say for those women are worried, that have these fears?
Great question. The first thing I would say is it will be much, much, much harder if you've lost your confidence, if you don't feel in your body, if you haven't dealt with grief and loss, if you're not connected to yourself and your amazing feminine superpower, it's going to be really hard. That's true, right? That's true. However, it doesn't have to be like that. But then on a more surface level, which I guess the question you ask is, yes, a lot of men will be looking for younger women. A lot of men will have a lot more baggage. That's absolutely true. But there are some men, and you will only need one, unless you want a few, which is also fine. But if you want one romantic partner, there are some who have also done the work, they've done personal development. There's some who will recognize that amazing authenticity in you, and the authentic confidence in you, that they will, it's totally going to be possible. So the other advantage of this chapter of reinvention and finding love, again, you as women, once we're really clear on what we want, we won't settle for something that's not right anymore. We will be much more clear on what we want, and then we can communicate those needs and wants a lot more, which is also really attractive. So that's when real men, the men who are men and not boys, they will really be drawn to that confidence and that authenticity and the life experience that you and I have, where a 28-year-old might be more physically more beautiful because she, her breasts are perkier, there's no cellulite, but she won't have that wisdom, she won't have that awareness, she won't have that unique energy that you and I have as women in, let's just call it midlife. Not so sexy, but it is sexy. So yeah, that's, if that answers your question.
It just reminded me, I think I spoke about this a little bit last year. Something that I often share with my clients is a snippet of a podcast. It's a Joe Rogan podcast that he does with Brett Weinstein, the evolutionary psychologist. And they talk about the difference that we're evolutionary wired with to see certain people as hot, but certain people as beautiful. And they talked about how women of all ages, and they could think of many examples of midlife and elderly women even, that were very beautiful, not so much hot. So that really, really resonates, that an evolved man, a conscious man, is not just looking for someone hot, he's looking for someone that is beautiful, and that beauty really radiates from within. And I love that you're going to talk to us all about how we can really tap into that.
Yes, love it. And the quote comes to mind: outer beauty attracts, inner beauty captivates, which is so much more powerful. So of course we want to attract, but it needs to be more. And the fact is, as we identified, we're not as, my belly is not as firm as it was even 10 years ago. We're changing, but if we think that's our only superpower, we're in trouble, and it's not.
And when we talk about someone being beautiful at any age, what is it that we're sensing? What does that actually encompass, this feeling that someone is beautiful?
So my work as a coach and mentor, I do a lot of work with feminine archetypes, and that's something I love and I'm super passionate about. So it goes hand in hand to what you're asking. So from a male's perspective, what men are really drawn to, there's a few different feminine archetypes, and some men are more drawn to a certain lightness of femininity. Some are drawn more to the intense, bit more intense, deep, dark, feminine confidence, which, I feel like I'm embodying a little bit more. So there's different aspects, but in a nutshell, the three main ones that I feel like we need to really own, not just for men and dating, but in general. So the first one is the seductress archetype, which is all about that sexual confidence, which is also about embodiment, feeling at home in your body, feeling beautiful in your body, being connected to feeling your sexual energy, basically. And a lot of us have, or a lot of women in midlife can be a bit disconnected because of the things that we've talked about: life, putting on weight, not feeling as visible. So that is about really reawakening the sexual energy, which can be done through dance, looking after your own sexual needs, starting to flirt again, feeling at home in your body. So it needs to be felt. It can't be faked. It needs to be owned and felt. That's the first one.
So I just want to clarify though, Camille, you're not talking about reinvigorating our sex life, having great sex, feeling confident in bed. This seductress archetype, let's talk a little bit more about the ways in which it changes us when we activate more of this in our everyday life as well.
So it will affect our sex lives because it will then automatically feel more authentic, and you feel like you actually can receive pleasure more, you're feeling more confident naked. But what I'm talking about is the energy of you actually being in flow with your own body, feeling at home in your body, feeling your emotions, feeling connected to what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And I think emotions are a really important part, because we often, as women, we're really good at supporting others, but we're often not great with sitting in our own emotions and feelings, especially when they're not pleasant. And, my recent sort of change with a separation I'm going through right now, there's been so many emotions that have come up that I've just had to sit with it and, walk through the fire and like, wow, isn't that interesting? And so us being connected to what we're actually feeling and being able to sit with what we're feeling is a part of that, because we often expect that from a partner to have that space for us and to connect deeper. But if we can't do it for ourselves, it's tricky to invite it in a relationship. So the emotion part is a part of that, really owning yourself, but feeling the emotions in your body, not just analyzing them in your head.
When women have this seductress archetype activated, what would other people notice about them? What have other people noticed about you as you've really, really started to embody this archetype through midlife?
They notice that, well, recently for myself, a lot of my friends have actually noticed, like, wow, you look so much younger all of a sudden again. You look lighter with your energy. You look more just more inspired. You look more, you're more fun. You're more connected. They feel like there's a bigger, that they're more drawn to me because I'm awake again. Where if we're dormant, that people don't really gravitate towards us. So it's a real awake, open, fun. I guess the energy is really like when we were maybe traveling for the first time in our early 20s. That sense of, oh, the world is amazing. I feel great. I feel excited. I feel don't know. I don't care about really what's going to happen tomorrow. It's that kind of real fresh energy which we want again, don't we? in midlife?
I remember doing a workshop at the Coaching Institute, which is actually how we originally met. And I was there, it was an NLP workshop a very long time ago, and I had my hair up in a really tight bun, like a really, really tight bun. And I remember the amazing NLP facilitator, which her name was Alice at the time, she was going through and just using her wisdom to provide little snippets of things for people. And she just actually said to me, like, pull your hair out of the bun, like just take your hair down and let it flow. And I hadn't styled my hair. Obviously, I just obviously
Mm.
woken up early and put it in a bun. But there was something that happened in that moment, and she felt the energy of it, and everyone felt the energy of it. And everyone in the room, she asked them to say, you know, doesn't she look different? And I let my hair down. And I think in a lot of ways, what you've just described is this feeling of like you've been carrying a heavy backpack around, and then you finally take it off, or you finally let your hair down out of a too tight hairstyle with too many pins in it. And would
Love
that be
that.
fair to say?
Definitely. And adding to that, it's the whole thing for me lately too, is I had a lot of things about like what my life should have looked like, what my marriage should have looked like, what, you know, how I should have been perceived, should be perceived by my clients. There's a lot of shoulds that can sneak up, and even like what I thought a successful relationship should look like, even though I've been helping in this area with over so many years, like I hadn't totally like looked at my own, like, why do I actually think it should look like, why did I think I needed to have it in a certain way? I also had this thing about buying property in this certain area that we ended up buying property in, and it was like a big tick, you know. And then like even doing IVF and wanting a child, like even though I wanted to have a child, but it was still a little bit like, no, push, push, push. It's going to be another tick, you know. Yep, successful. Yep, done, you know, older mom, tick. And it's like, ooh, is that really? And it ended up biting me in the ass a little bit, to be honest. That whole pattern. So I'm really looking at what is the new me now. Like how do I want to turn up? What's my authentic who am I now? And a lot of it is actually I feel like I'm reconnected to who I was in my 20s, which was, I was very unconventional actually, you know, and I was a stripper. I was really rebellious. I didn't care what people would think of me, and I'm inviting some of that back now. Not that I'm going back into that kind of work, but you know, I'm inviting some of that authentic energy back that I actually thought, no, that wasn't going to be appropriate in my 40s to bring that out. So it goes with the letting, you know, taking the hairband off.
So for the ladies that maybe feel like they have lost a little bit of themselves through midlife, and like you had more of that mojo going on when they were younger, or for the ladies who feel like maybe they've always perhaps walked the path of following through what society or family has conditioned us to think is the life that I'm supposed to strive for, like you just described, how do you talk us through the process of how you went about reconnecting back with your true desires so that the next half of your life can be so much more magical?
I've always been strong in courage. Courage is one of my core, it's in my bones. So I just had that. There were a few things that happened, and I'm like, I just knew I had to change and I had to move forward. And then things, you know, things happened really quickly, and I just kept on saying yes. But how I help my clients now with that process is there are three different areas that we really need to tap into this. So the first one is the magnetism. So, you know, we called her the seductress, but that's that magnetism piece, which is the sacral chakra area. So that needs to be reactivated, because if it's not, we operate from more of a fight and flight, or more of a masculine energy. So that part needs to be somehow reactivated.
And what do we do if that is blocked?
So a few a few things that I touched on. I mean, one for me, that really works is dance, and choosing songs that maybe remind you of a time when you were much freer, when you're really confident. Like there's usually a few songs like from the for us, and you and I, probably the 80s, sort of early 80s, when we were in that sort of teenage years or early 20s or wherever you are on your journey. But there's usually some songs that evoke something in us, and to really feel the energy in your body and dance to it can be a really, really great start. And then again, going back into like connecting to the truth, like, what do I really feel about my life right now? What is working and what's not working, but not from an intellectual perspective, like really like tuning into your gut feeling, and then starting to speak it to yourself or good friends or a mentor. It's about then feeling it and then expressing it, and then saying yes to, I'm recommitting to a bigger life. I'm recommitting to having an amazing relationship again. I don't know how it's going to happen. I don't know who it's going to be, but I'm owning that desire. So yeah, that's another really key thing.
Something I've noticed has actually happened with me over the past few years is I've dipped in and out of either being really connected and clear and focused and living in the vibration of all the things that I want for my future, and then really dipping out. We talked about I lost my dad, and I just wondered if you had any tips for the ladies about how we can actually re-access or reconnect to those deeper desires that we have.
One thing that works really well for me is reading my power statement every day. So it's like every day in the morning, as part of having a some kind of morning ritual in place, but actually reading, once you've identified, let's just say I desire a relationship where I get to experience deep emotional and sexual intimacy. Like I desire deep emotional and sexual intimacy. Most of us do desire that, right? So it's a good example, juicy example. So take that, take your journal every morning, either rewrite it or read it out loud. Close your eyes, feel it in your body. I desire a relationship where I feel deep emotional and sexual intimacy. Feeling it. That's enough as a daily ritual, just to stay connected to that, because that just anchors it in. And then of course, if you want to take it further, then you would you'd have other rituals in place during the day or in the evening, or where you would talk it out or talk to your future partner, where you have vision boards. There's so many things you can do, but just to keep it simple, that is a really powerful process. It's about the knowing the desire and feeling it and recommitting to it every single day. Because as you said, otherwise when there's challenges, which often does happen, we can easily disconnect. And it's easier to disconnect because then we don't have to stay connected to the fear that might come up, the vulnerability that we might feel, but also it's the pleasure and the love and giving and receiving that we block ourselves if we're numb. So it's worth it. It's worth doing it. And that would be a really simple tip, but it's really powerful as well.
One of the themes that's really weaved through this event this year in our 5th season is this notion that a lot of us are sitting in a space where we're no longer who we once were, but we're not quite who we're becoming. It's almost like this, a little bit of a gray area. Often our friendship groups change. We're looking at potentially a different career or a different way of living, a complete lifestyle change, a location change, things like that. And I just want to sort of reassure any of the women that are watching that also feel like they're in this space, that it's okay. That's why we're here. We're here to support you. And I'm really grateful that living in Bali, I have access to and able to guide women through retreats as well, to really take them out of that space. the magical healing powers and all of the beautiful Hindu and sacred cleansing blessings and things like that. The magic of that is really stunning.
Just on that note, the allowing space, what you just mentioned, is absolutely key. And I move quite fast when I make decisions. Like once I make the decisions, I'm really fast, but then sometimes it's also like, oh, hang on, slow down, like give yourself time to integrate. And the allowing space is that concept of allow the space for what hasn't turned up yet to turn up. So we want to give ourselves that space and not fill it with something that we don't want. So for example, let's say you've come out of a divorce, you're really clear you want that intimacy again. How you could fill that space is just by having lots of casual lovers, which there's nothing wrong with that, but you might just use that strategy as a fear-based strategy of like, you know, and I need to get my needs met, and you know, I haven't had them met for so many years. So it's important to give yourself space again to stay connected to your feelings and honoring them without using substitutes, without using fear-based behaviors. And taking things slow can be much more powerful because you're giving yourself that time, and to allow support to, it's more feminine, it's a more feminine approach to slow things down a little bit, even though the energy of the awakening can happen really quickly, which happened with me late, you know, not that long ago. But then the process after that, it's important that we take time to integrate and to get really clear, well, who am I now actually, or I don't know who I am right now, but who do I think I want to be in the next 5-10 years? And really giving that time to explore. And that's, of course, where coaching can be a really valuable additional support.
There is a beautiful alchemy that happens in that space if you allow it. This is something that you teach your clients as well.
Definitely. Yeah, the identity work is really it's fascinating, and it's fun, and it's yeah, that who the next level goddess concept in my programs. It's that, what kind of next level goddess are you going to be, and what does she represent, what does she believe, what does she no longer tolerate, how does she feel every day, what does she really want to experience in that next relationship, in her career. So that's where it's a really fun process, and which is actually part of the freebie that the women will have access to. Guided visualization, activation, I call them activations, but it's like a visualization where I will guide you through those 3 areas of the magnetism, the power, and the flow, which are the 3 areas that I work with my clients through that transformation. And it's very much about getting a really great sense of that vision and feeling it in your body as you go through the process. So you will come out the other end after listening to the process of a really good taste and of what that will feel like for you. And it will, you know, it will inspire you then to get more, to continue that journey and to really take that energy to the next level in your own life. And I'll share some strategies in that meditation as well.
One of the terms that I often hear and I feel myself and I describe when I'm really activating that energy of feeling grounded in like that goddess energy. It's a quiet, grounded confidence. And I often use the word I felt in flow, or hear people use this word in flow. Like, what does that mean? What does it really mean? And what are we really describing?
I think there are a lot of different takes on this, so I can only share my take. For me, the flow is, it's actually the flow also of the masculine and the feminine. It's not just the feminine. So for me, being in flow means that I feel my body, I feel really connected to myself, my authentic self, but I also take inspired action. I don't think about it. Like I don't overanalyze it, but it's also about making things happen, but from a more flow energy. So for me, a lot of it is around the integration of the yin and the yang, and feeling that in the body, and also really trusting, surrendering, allowing. That's more the feminine principle of that. So the flow area is very much about the giving and receiving. And as women, we tend to be better at giving and supporting others. So this is the flow between receiving love, support, and giving it, but not in a lukewarm, safe space. And that's another thing that with the midlife awakening, we don't want anything lukewarm, do we? Like, we giving and receiving from a really authentic, rich space with our friendships, with our intimate partners. That's where the intimate connection comes in, the intimacy with ourselves, giving, receiving from a really, with that flow. So I guess the figure 8 comes to mind, or the waves. We give, we receive. It's like, oh my God, I didn't even think that, my friend was going to call me and listen to me for half an hour, but it felt so good because I allowed myself to get that support. And then maybe in the evening, I'll talk to a friend who really needs my support. And then it feels really free. It feels generous. There's no sort of like, oh God, she's been talking for half an hour already. Or, that's the kind of thing that I love about being in flow. There's time dissolves a little bit too. We get lost in time, but it's fun. It's that feeling alive, open, free, all the juicy things that we want to feel.
A lot of us have, probably without realizing it, tied a bit of our own self-worth to this idea that we are in service of some of other people, like you described. I want to just unpack even a little bit more this idea of giving and receiving, because we feel like a good friend when we're the ones that are giving, or we feel like a good partner when we're the ones that are doing the doing, and we feel like a good mother when we're doing the doing and all of that. For someone who's really had a difficult time just actually allowing and receiving without feeling the need to always reciprocate, what other sort of work can they do, as reluctant as I am to use the word work, but what else can they do for that to feel more comfortable, the receiving?
That's a really important area. I think the first step is to really recognize that feeling your self-worth, so being connected to what do I really stand for and why am I worthy, and to really have that in a separate bubble to I'm worthy when I contribute and give, because your self-worth from a feminine perspective is you're worthy just being you. And but you need to feel that first. It's like, who am I really without being the giver? So that would be step 1, which is very much an inner work piece. Because if we don't connect to that, we will just automatically go into the wanting to feel worthy through giving, because that's just sort of like an automatic thing that we go to. So step 1 would be really like identifying and feeling where does your self-worth sit? What does that feel like? And then from that space, the stretch would be, even setting the intention for tomorrow, let's say, how can I receive just a little bit more than what I usually receive? So for example, when someone gives you a compliment, rather than like, oh no, like, or, oh yeah, that bag, oh yeah, I got that. That's a cheap one. Or, how we sometimes just sort of downplay things like, oh, the earrings are nice. And yeah, I just got, they're just cheap ones or whatever. So really receiving the compliment, like, thank you. Yeah, they are nice, aren't they? They're beautiful earrings. Or if someone wants to shout you coffee, rather than like, oh, I got this, like, oh, thank you. That's really kind of you. And not even saying like, I get it next time, which we usually do. Like, let me get the next one. Just sit with it and feel it like, oh, how does that feel? Just allowing, being, having that coffee paid for. So that would be just little stretches, just setting the intention. Like for one day, I'm just going to be open to receiving a little bit more.
I love that you actually demonstrated the difference in a real life example, because I could literally see almost the difference in your face and the whole energy that you spoke with and shared with when you went into the energy of receiving and thank you, aren't they beautiful? And there's a lot of grace around that I think as women we don't realize we already have access to.
I think with the receiving part with dating and relationships, I think it's a really important piece to really just be aware of when you go into giving out of fear or wanting to control, which we often do, as well as strong powerhouse women. Really always be aware with the messaging, with the initial stages of dating, like, where's this coming from now, this message? Is it me wanting to share and feeling really good, or asking an authentic question, or is it coming out of wanting to impress or wanting to control or fear? And generally speaking, less is more at the beginning, like less giving and more receiving, because the masculine, for those women who want a more masculine partner, he wants to pursue, he wants to prove himself. And if we have too much in that giving energy, we don't allow that polarity, especially at the beginning. That's hugely important.
Your next level goddess activation is really amazing and a beautiful first step for women to start to step into all of these beautiful techniques and experiences to absolutely thrive in midlife. Can you share with us what the ladies are going to experience when they download your meditation?
So the meditation will take them through a process of going through the solar, the sacral chakra, which is the magnetism area. It will then move into the power center, which is the solar plexus, and then moving into the heart. So they're the three areas that will be activating. They will feel a physical reactivation of those energy centers. And then, as I mentioned before, it's going to be a process of really getting a taste of what that new version of themselves as the next level goddess is going to feel like and look like. One piece of feedback I've always had consistently from clients or potential clients when they've listened to my meditations, they've always said that you got me to a place where I believed much bigger things were possible again for me. And I could actually see it. I could feel it. I could connect to it emotionally. And I feel like that's probably one of my superpowers as a mentor. And that's my promise of, of that process, that the women will get a taste of that, to really feel and connect to their bigger visions again after the setbacks that they most likely have experienced in the last few years, maybe even 10 years. And there is that not just light at the end of the tunnel, but there's a really big, amazing reawakening waiting for you to be explored, which is, I love that. I love it.
Thank you so much, Camilla. I can definitely vouch for how powerful and stunningly beautiful your guided meditations are. I've personally been able to experience some of those that we've done, and very thankful to be able to call you a dear friend. And also, just as an inspiration, both you and I want to share how amazing this period of our life can be. And we both will often have people a little bit surprised that we're in our 50s.
Yes, life doesn't stop. It doesn't stop here, and it doesn't have to become lukewarm and compromised. But it's a choice, right? It is a choice, because it can easily happen that way. Like and you know, with my journey, I've lost my dad as well 2.5 years ago. I've you know, my son Jasper is on the autism spectrum, so there was some huge challenges there. Having him later in life, I could have easily gone into like, yeah, this is as good as it's going to get. I'm just going to have to take myself, you know, tone myself down a bit. It's going to be about, I'm just going to need to be an amazing parent. And, you know, but maybe I don't need that. I don't need to have great sex anymore. You know, that's overrated, or could have easily gone there. But it's a choice that we need to make of like, well, what do I really want for the next 30 years? Let's say, you know, that's still a long time of either being lukewarm and compromised, or numbed out, or being really awake and thriving. Which one do you want? And if you want the juicier one, you know, yes, we need to be willing to do some inner work, but it's totally worth it, I think.
Wow. Thanks, Camille. That was super powerful.
A bit of I'm on a mission. You can tell I've got a lot of fire going on at the moment. So, but you know, that's who I am, and I feel really good in that. So I need to, you know, it's my mission to inspire you, because sometimes when we're dormant, we need to, you know, we need to maybe sometimes feel a little bit of that extra energy from someone else to wake up, because otherwise it's just you know, we could have just had a sort of a wise, polite conversation, but that's not what's going to wake someone up. So I'm bringing it for you if you're listening in that space.
All of Camille's socials and links, and the link to access her beautiful Next Level Woman Goddess activation are linked up below the video today. Get onto that, because just being in the field of incredible women like Camille is already so activating, as you can tell from today's conversation. Thanks so much, Camille. It's so good to see you, and we will catch you again, ladies, tomorrow.